And welcome back, everyone. It is indeed Friday the 13th, so naturally I had to do a Friday the 13th video. Especially it seems like this year we haven't gotten as many as we have in previous years. So definitely need to take advantage of the fact that we do actually have one, and also not just a couple days out for my birthday, just throwing that out there. So not only am I going to take this moment to actually just say happy Friday the 13th, because to us horror fans especially, Friday the 13th is actually a good thing because it means we get to celebrate, at least for a lot of us, I think one of our favorite franchises. I know I'm a big Friday the 13th Jason fan. In fact, I'm wearing one of my actually favorite shirts right now. And someone had asked me when I was asking for questions for the Q&A, which by the way, I'm going to redo, actually answered some of the questions because I'm going to sort of divide it up into a couple videos. But it's kind of low energy, so I kind of want to re-record it. But one of the questions from someone who does want to remain anonymous, but it was a very good question, and that was, how would you rank the Friday the 13th franchise from worst to best, with a quick summary of your feelings on each one? And honestly, I actually don't think I've actually done this, believe it or not. Or if I have, it's been so long. So I kind of went through and it's like, you know what, I am going to rank these from worst to best. Although, honestly, I love them all. So it's kind of really just going to be very minor differences as to why I'm picking certain ones. And a lot of it even has to do with just, a mix of nostalgia, but also ones that, I grew up watching more of. So they kind of mean a little bit more to me. But either way, let's just jump right into it. So starting from the quote-unquote worst, although obviously again I love them all, maybe this one just not as much as the other ones, and that is indeed Jason Goes to Hell. There's a lot about the film I actually do love, but I just kind of felt that the idea of it and the execution of certain aspects of it didn't quite live up to kind of what I wanted. I kind of felt like, Jason was sort of really minor, even though technically surrounded because he's jumping from body to body. But even though, again, I do love a lot of aspects of it, it is technically my least favorite one. Next up, if you want to include it, is the remake, the Friday the 13th remake. Kind of the same thing where, like, there's a lot of aspects of it I actually really, really love, and there's other aspects of it it's like, because it's kind of retreading the same thing. I mean, yes, technically it's kind of a like pseudo remake of like 1 through 3, but I do like that they try to make Jason like kind of serious and scary again. The next two are actually sort of tied for me, and I think sometimes I'm not sure which one to go back and forth on, but for sure, and one of them you can debate whether or not you even want to have it on this list, but the two that are sort of tied are Jason X and Freddy vs. Jason. Now, I don't know whether or not you want to include Freddy vs. Jason on this list or not. I think there's enough Friday the 13th lore in the film, as I said, the fact that Jason's even in it, that you could definitely make the argument that it fits, ironically, in both Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street series. It's like it kind of fits in both, beyond the obvious. And Jason X, which I just think is actually a really fun film. I mean, obviously it's much more comedic and everything, but I know sometimes that one kind of gets dogpiled a little bit, but I've always enjoyed it. And again, it's the fact that it took the concept to putting Jason in space. It kind of gave, a good enough reason for it, and you could tell that everyone was just literally having a lot of fun with it. And Freddy vs. Jason, I mean, sometimes it's easy to forget that how much of an almost phenomenon that was when it came out. And again, that's just one that, I mean, it's like there's still some, even though aspects of the film don't hold up for me as high as they used to, there's still just something special about seeing those two iconic horror characters together. And even watching it now, it's like there's still kind of like, a kid me that's like, oh my god, it's Freddy and Jason, like together and they're fighting. So the remainder are going to be the Paramount ones. So starting with the next one is going to be Friday the 13th Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan, which I've said many times before, I really love Jason Takes Manhattan. I know, again, that's another one that sort of gets dogpiled and stuff, and it's like, yeah, I know, technically, I sort of don't really get to Manhattan to the last, like, 25 minutes of the film, and even then, I think most of it was actually shot in Canada anyway, but it's like, you know what, I still love the film, I still think it's a lot of fun, which, I mean, there's probably an ongoing theme, a lot of these, they're just fun, and I enjoy watching them over and over and over again, and Jason Takes Manhattan is definitely no exception. Next up is going to be Friday the 13th Part 7, The New Blood, which, kind of the same thing. I mean, it's like, it's one of those that I grew up watching, just like 8, so it's like, again, has kind of special meaning for me, and it has, I still argue, definitely the best makeup job for Jason outside of the final chapter. For me, in my opinion, like final chapter and Part 7 have the best looking Jason. And again, I kind of love just the fact that they were just like, well, let's try something new. Let's, have him fight a girl who has these like, psychic power thing. And it's like, sure, why not? It's like, and they have a lot of fun with it as well. I do kind of wish it was, it's one of those films where I kind of wish like if the uncut version actually existed, I think it would probably be just a little bit more higher on my list because it kind of takes the edge a little bit off out of the film. But again, I still enjoy it just the same. Next up is Friday the 13th Part 5, and obviously, you know, as I've mentioned many times before, I am actually a big fan of Part 5. It meant a lot when I got to meet more of the cast members from it at this past Flashback Weekend, which if you haven't watched it, please watch my Flashback Weekend video. And it's just one of those where it's like, it's almost like the Halloween 3 of the series almost, where it's like, you know, it kind of does its own thing, but I don't feel it takes away from anything else. In fact, if anything, I actually think there's something very much more comedic about the film, especially by that point in the series, because I think 5 was a little bit more of a transitional, where they hadn't quite had as much humor in the series yet, and that one brought out a lot of humor. Next up is Friday the 13th Part 2, and that's definitely one that I think I definitely appreciate even a lot more now than I used to. Like, I've always liked Part 2, but definitely as the years have gone on, I really much more appreciate it now, just the fact that it is such a great film to continue the series and really launch Jason in so many ways. And it's also nice that a lot of people really appreciate it a lot more now as well. It's nice to know like I'm not alone there. Next up is Friday the 13th Part 6, which kind of goes without saying. I think a lot of us, you know, a lot of people just love Part 6. It is, in many ways, I think it's the most accessible Friday the 13th and the one that's probably technically the most successful. But what's great is that it has all of the actual elements that sort of make up the sort of mythology of Friday the 13th and Jason and the camp and all of that. But it's just like the characters are really great. It actually has the camp setting with kids who actually arrive. Like Jason looks great. It's got a couple of great kills and all that kind of stuff. And I think it's also because it has a lot of really good humor to it that it's also, I think in many ways, almost the most accessible one for people maybe sort of outside the fandom. And 6 always kind of bounces back and forth between third and fourth place for me. Speaking of which, the next one on the list is indeed Friday the 13th Part 3. And again, you know, 3 and 6 sort of bounce back and forth. It really comes down to almost like which one I watched last. 3 just holds a very special place because 3 was one I saw really young, and that's the one that kind of clicked for me as far as, you know, Jason and like, you know, becoming a fan of Jason and the hockey mask and like all that stuff. And it's just like, so that's the one that really kind of did it for me. So it's hard for me not to remove that from, so every time I watch it, and especially that first time when you see Jason like standing on the pier and he's wearing the hockey mask for the first time, like I'm like, you know, because it's like when I was a kid, it was just like that was the coolest thing. So yeah, Part 3 is third, Part 3 in the list. Coming up at number 2 is going to be the original Friday the 13th, which still is amazing to this day. You know, there's something almost very simple about it because it kind of takes its time going and everything, but it's also the one that I think has the most sort of atmosphere and kind of overall just creepy feeling because it is the first one in the series and it sort of is laying the groundwork. And a lot of times on Friday the 13th, which I might actually do today, depending on how the rest of the day plays out, is that's the one I actually usually go to watch. And then finally for number 1, probably comes to no one's surprise. I think I've said this a couple times before, and it is indeed Friday the 13th, the final chapter. I mean, in fact, technically, you know, there's the image right there on my shirt. And the final chapter to me is just so amazing and just so creepy because it's so scary. And I love the look of Jason. He has an intensity that in my opinion, I don't think he even has in any other film. Like the way they portray him, like he's just so intense and intimidating. And obviously the kills are great. And they introduced the Tommy Jarvis, you know, that character. And then it has so many great lines. You know, it has Crispin Glover in his dancing. And it still has what I would argue is one of the best kills in any film, not just Friday the 13th, but in any film, which is obviously at the end, spoiler alert, but you know, I don't think I have to say that. But it's when Jason gets the machete to the head, falls to the floor, and slides down the blade. I mean, how perfect is that to end anyone, you know, let alone a killer? And that has always been amazing to me. I still remember the first time I saw it. It was like gruesome and exciting because I'd never seen anything like that before. So the final chapter is indeed my favorite one. But again, just want to say once more that I love them all, especially as you get down to these last couple, like, you know, I mean, they're separated by like paper thin kind of, you know, separation between them. I do love all the Jason films. I'm a massive Jason fan, and it is Friday the 13th, so obviously this was the perfect day to do this list. So definitely let me know which ones you would rank, or at the very least, let me know which one's your favorite. And as always, thank you for watching, and once again, happy Friday the 13th.